So let's celebrate. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear sweetheart. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear sweetheart. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear sweetheart. Happy birthday to you. This is your day, so let's celebrate. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear sweetheart. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear sweetheart. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear sweetheart. Happy birthday to you. This is your day, so let's celebrate. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear sweetheart. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear sweetheart. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear sweetheart. Happy birthday to you. This is your day, so let's celebrate. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear sweetheart. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear sweetheart. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear sweetheart. Happy birthday to you. This is your day, so let's celebrate. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear sweetheart. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear sweetheart. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear sweet.
Okay, good morning. Good morning. I'm a minute early here starting this, but what the hey. And if y'all ain't figured it out, today is my wife's birthday. Yay! She forgot to take the day off work. She was authorized to take the day off, but she forgot to request it until last night when I asked her. Because I was going to, cancel the stream or do like I'm going to have to do anyway today, have a shortened stream. So I could take her out and do some things for her today. But just heads up, today may be a shortened stream because I've got to bake her cake for her. And while that's in the oven, I've got to run and pick up the steaks for dinner and her birthday present. Then, of course, get that stuff home, get the steaks on the griddle, and then get her present wrapped and the cake decorated up and everything else. So, but This woman's been with me for over 33 years now. Been married for 33 years, and she's put up with me that long. Poor woman. Just goes to show what little sense she actually has. I mean, I've said this for years, women have got impossibly high standards everywhere except when it comes to who they marry. Because very rarely do I meet a woman who's married down or married up. Most women marry down. I mean, face it. I'm the first one to admit I'm no great catch. But for some reason, she's hung around me for all these years. Now, I'd rather, like this morning, I surprised her. I got up at 3:30 this morning, and she loves waffles. So I made her some cinnamon flavored waffles, cinnamon mixed waffles. She really likes that cinnamon toast crunch powder. So made up a from scratch waffle batter with honey and cinnamon toast crunch mixture in it, cinnamon um, extract, a little bit of rum extract, a little bit of vanilla extract. Made her a Belgian waffle for breakfast. Nah, that ain't gonna happen, duck dog. And then tonight I'm going to uh, make up steaks and layered potatoes for dinner, and with stir fried veggies on the side. And she managed to break her watch, so I ordered her a new one. And it's supposed to come in yesterday, so I'll go pick it up today and get it wrapped. And then that will be her. That will be the celebrate. And then I can't believe I'm doing this. I can't. Tomorrow night, I'm having to take her to go see the new Indiana Jones movie. I am torturing myself. I'm going to go see this new Indiana Jones movie. So, oh, that sounds good, Fury. But, yep. Still trying to decide if I'm going to make her a red velvet cake today or not. Because she does like red velvet cakes. I just don't know if I'm going to have time to bake one for her or not to bake one of those for her today, depending on which version I make. If I make the one where I just use food dye, then I'll probably do it that way. Is that a treat or a torture? What the movie? For me, the movie's going to be a torture. But that's I have a tendency to stick up and keep up with what's going on in the movie industry as far as movies that I'm interested in seeing, because I don't like spending $16 to $18 a ticket, then another $20 once you get inside. I mean, when we go tomorrow night, it's going to be, we've already spent $36 on tickets. I'll spend another $30 to $40 on dinner. So that's basically I'm going to blow $100 bill tomorrow night on a movie that I'm predisposed to not liking because of everything that's gone on with it. So But she's excited to go see it. She asked to go see it, so we're going to go see it. Why? Because I love my wife. And that's all there are to it. So, fortunately, she doesn't listen to this stream, so it doesn't happen. Okay. Even mixed it with toasted cumin. Okay. All right. Now, it's amazing. Now that I've got the happy birthday to my sexy sweetheart out of the way, the idiots, the fools and idiots which surround us. We all know that if a group of Christians, white Christians, conservative white Christians, got together to protest the LGBTQ curriculum being taught in the schools, the general consensus would be they're a bunch of transphobes, homophobes, whatever phobes. They're and need to be investigated by the FBI because that's actually happened. FBI has actually sent the agents out to investigate white conservative parents who spoke up at school board meetings against all this LGBTQ stuff being taught in the schools. But if a bunch of Muslims get together to do it, Muslim activists give powerful speech against forced LGBTQ curriculum. Our people are not backwards. See, they've got those points that they can use to elevate themselves out of the phobes and haters and such. Because they're a minority. They're an oppressed minority because white Christians hate them dark-skinned Muslims. Of course, you don't have to be dark-skinned to be a Muslim. There are white Muslims, but that's not the way the media and everybody portrays them. Muslim parents delivered passionate speeches against elementary school children in Maryland's Montgomery County public schools being forced to learn LGBTQ sexuality curriculum against parents' wishes at a Tuesday night school boarding. It wouldn't be, that speech would not have been labeled as passionate. Yeah, I know this is Fox News, but that would have been intolerant speeches, transphobic speeches, homophobic speeches would have been what would have been used instead of passionate. And meanwhile, somebody who had been out in the parking lot writing down their license plate numbers, somebody else would have been taking down their names of everybody that got up there to speak to turn over to the FBI for investigations as being radicals and dangerous. Parents, students, and activists have taken issue over the past few weeks with the school district removing an opt-out option for LGBTQ sexuality curriculum. Yeah, we don't care what you want. You have to send your children. Your children will learn about the LGBTQ sexual curriculum. We as Muslims, it should be we as parents, but we as Muslims reject the implication that acting on our faith principles is a willful means of harming others. In fact, we see it as a point of bigotry that some only care for our community, will only protect our rights when we assimilate to their way of life and way of thinking. Well, that's the modern day left. They're very tolerant. They're very tolerant of everybody that agrees with them. If you disagree with the left on any subject, it doesn't matter which subject. If you don't follow in lockstep with the radical left, with the progressive left, you're you're not welcome at all. You're not tolerated at all. You've got it, Fury. The PTAs are the new KK. Ouch, Fury. That doesn't sound like that feels very good. Our faith is not partisan and our people are not backwards. Part of the American dream of our people is that they pass on their values to their children. That's part of everybody's dream, that you pass on your values to your children. But that's not the school's dream. The school's dream is to indoctrinate your children into their way of thinking. And since so many of our schools, nearly all of them, are infected with progressive left wing ideology, that if you're in any way conservative, your values will not be taught. Your values won't be tolerated because you're not worthwhile. You're not worthy of being included. They're not very inclusive, no matter what they say, of values that aren't their own. But members of this school board have mocked our values and have said we cannot be allowed to opt our children out precisely because they want to end that dream. Exactly. Our dreams as parents and grandparents of passing our values down to our children and our grandchildren, of raising them in the way that we see fit. That's not the way the modern day school boards and school systems look at it. She added that Muslim parents have a constitutional First Amendment right to install their values into their children. We ask that we at least have a choice for our children not to be forced to participate in celebrating or normalizing views that contradict our religion. Well, see, we got a problem here, okay? And I agree with her to a degree. As long as, and call me a hypocrite if you want. As long as your religious views, your views don't include tossing people off of rooftops to teach them how to fly, that's fine. Other than that, I don't care what as long as you're not teaching children to hate other people to the point that they will go out and kill them, that you're not teaching that the only way to deal with somebody is to kill them, that's fine. But once again, the schools are normalizing what used to be considered abnormal. That's why the schools fly the LGBTQ and celebrate Pride Month as they do. And of course, that's brought down to them through the NEA and through the teachers' unions, more left wing organizations. She argued that students will learn about transgender individuals at appropriate time as deemed by their parents. And the conversations that they will have with these members of our community will serve as an education on these matters later in their lives. But we're asking, you shouldn't be asking, you should be demanding. But she's being polite. She's asking that our children not be strong armed at such a young age into believing certain ideas about gender and sexuality, or that the school system insists on turning our children against religious values that we hold. The schools do not want your children to have religious values. That's the problem there. The schools do not want your children to have any religious values. Because if you have religious values, then you can't accept the norms that they want to teach your children. Because religion, and I don't care which modern day religion it is, holds that some things are wrong to do. Some things are just wrong to do. Now, I may not agree with everything that they say is wrong to do. I mean, some religions will, it's wrong to eat cows. Well, I'm sorry, but beef is a delicious piece of meat. Some religions teach it's wrong to eat eggs or fish. I don't agree with them, but if that's their religion, I'm not going to sit there and tell them they can't teach their children that or force their children to eat meat, to eat a cow, to eat chicken, eggs, fish, because that's their religion. That's the religion of their parents. And parents have the right to teach this to their children, to install these beliefs into their children. And when the children grow up, they're either going to continue to accept that religion or they will reject that religion or parts of that religion. Hey, nobody, how you doing today? So yeah, this is one area where the Christians and Muslims should be getting together to force the school boards into allowing us to install our values into our children. Other speakers against the opt-out option being removed included a child named Sahad, a middle school student in the school system. I'm here to talk about my rights. My religion teaches to respect all religions and all human beings and their rights. So does my country's law. I want my right back to have an opt-out option. Another child who was a 2023 graduate said, I'm here to testify on behalf of my elementary age cousins. Though the introduction of texts and discussions related to transgenderism and LGBTQ plus may support the school's mission to be all inclusive, I don't believe my first grade and third grade cousins are prepared to read and discuss such issues. And they're not. A first grader should be discussing about how to perform oral sex on another person their own age, let alone another person of the same sex. Now, you should not be sitting there and teaching a first grader, second grader, or third grader any of this stuff. This, if anything, if the schools absolutely have to teach it, this should be high school level stuff, not elementary school or junior high. I mean, I remember my junior high biology class. They separated the boys from the girls. And they took the girls over to their area to teach them about their bodies. They had a female teacher come in. They had a male teacher come in to discuss the male bodies and what puberty did and what to expect to happen. Some of the boys and girls were already experiencing that. I mean, we had a kid in my seventh grade had a full beard. They actually had to put a rule in the dress code in our junior high school uh, students manual because of him. No, he entered puberty earlier than the rest of us did. But yeah, I mean, that is the biology and the sexuality that needs to be taught. What is happening to your body? Girls, about the monthly cycle. Boys, about morning wood. And these sudden erections you get walking around during the day. Okay, that's what needs to be taught, not this other stuff. Not that how to give oral sex, how to receive oral sex, anal sex, prostate manipulation, massages, yada yada yada, all this other, not weird stuff, but all this other stuff. That's not junior high school material. All right, Fury. Yeah, and if that's just something, we live in a secular government. We live in a secular country. You have the right to believe what you want to believe as long as it doesn't harm another person. And part of the government's job is to allow us the freedom of our religions. The First Amendment, remember? And part of that First Amendment is the government can't come in and preach stuff that force us and our children into things that violate our religious faiths. And I honestly believe these school boards, they're violating, our constitutional rights. Kids are taught to read, they could look it up themselves. Okay, I'm trying. Nobody. Okay, I'm assuming nobody. What you're saying is that the schools aren't even teaching the children how to read, and given what the scores are, I mean, books that, I mean, uh, the Hobbit books, those were written to be read by children, not young adults, but by children. Now young adults can barely get their way through them. You look at what kids 100 years ago were being taught in schools as far as reading, and what they're taught today is ridiculous. Hey, JoJo, good morning to you. Yeah, exactly, Fury. So another Muslim child also now. You can't be a recent graduate and a child. If you've graduated high school, you're no longer a child. Freedom of religion is a fundamental human right that protects the conscience of all people, allows us to think, express, and act upon what we deeply believe. But around the world in the United States, this freedom is eroding, and that is the truth. And why is it eroding? It's eroding because the left-wing fanatical radicals don't want us to have our religious beliefs anymore. Following the children speaking out at the June 6th meeting, a Montgomery Council member, Christy Mink, accused them of being on the side of white supremacists. This issue has unfortunately does put some Muslim families on the same side of an issue as white supremacists and outright bigots. The Democrat representing County Council for District 5 said, I would not put you in the same category as those folks, although you know it's complicated because they're falling on the same side of this particular issue. So you see what she's doing there. This is an elected official telling Muslims that they're as bad as a white supremacist. Now, nobody's right on every issue. Nobody. You can't take two people and have them agree on every issue. But there are going to be issues they agree upon. And even you take the most radical left wing idiot out there and me, and there's going to be some issues that that person and I agree upon. There are going to be some issues that people who are polar opposite do agree upon. And those are the issues that can be corrected. And when you take an issue like this, where you are, it's our, when it comes to people's children, and you have two opposite organizations like the Muslims and Christians, and now, of course, Christians are considered white supremacists by this Democrat. I know that. I don't even have to read anything of her saying it. You know that anybody who is a Christian, she considers to be a white supremacist. You know, uh, when they agree on a subject, that ought to be a wake-up call. Governor DeSantis here in Florida is taking a lot of heat because he recently vetoed a bill that only two people in the entire state legislature voted against. And that was an automatic expulsion of arrest records of anybody who was not convicted of any crimes. There's a lot more to it, but in general, if you didn't go to trial, if you weren't If you didn't plead guilty, if there was no pleadings or anything like that, you were arrested for something, and it turns out that you were arrested incorrectly, your records would be expunged of that arrest. And DeSantis vetoed it. I haven't had a chance to get into it to find out why he vetoed it. I do know that only two people in the entire state legislature voted against it. And so DeSantis, that's pretty when the radical Democrats in the South and Northeast of Florida and the conservative Republicans, all but two, agree on a bill, it's going to become law because they're going to vote and override his veto anyway. But he should have went ahead and signed it. And same thing here. When you've got polar opposite groups, when you've got polar opposite groups agreeing on something, people need to take a hard look at it and find out why they agree. And maybe you're wrong in trying to force something down someone's throats. All right, going on with this. One of the fathers in the district invoked Attorney General Merrick Garland's memo that led parents to speaking out at school board meetings being investigated by the FBI. He noted that the FBI has a particularly troubled history with the Muslim community, but said he would speak out anyway to protect his child. As I said, I didn't even read this far down in the article. As I said earlier, I'm surprised the school board, I would be surprised to find out the school board didn't contact the FBI over this. Y'all don't talk to us. You only talk to your own people. And look, I know that nowadays, even in Ohio, they talk about calling the FBI. You know what happens to us Muslims? It's not a secret. They got special places for Muslims. So you call them and you tell them, I'm waiting at his house for the FBI. Whoever you want to call, I'm not worried about it. I'll be in it for my kid. This is my kid. Of course, the school board did not respond to any requests for comments. But there's no reason why a class like this should be mandatory. A class like this, if the parents want a class like this, let it be optional. If the parents want a class like this. My gut feeling is that they were having so many people opt out of this class, they couldn't justify keeping it. They weren't getting enough students to fill the class. Yeah, nobody. I need to look more into that bill too. I just read about it briefly last night, and I've had other things on my mind for the past 2 days to get into it too much. So let's see. What time is it? 35 after. Okay. I got time for another story or two here. What do we got missing here? Oh, uh, but as an example of how pressured the left wing and schools are to push the left wing agenda, the DEI and CRT and the LGBTQ and all this other stuff that most of us conservative or normal people think is wrong. Uh, This is a bit of an oddball one here, though. So let me share this one. Yeah, Jojo, I'm sitting here drinking my sixth cup of coffee here this morning. I may have to make one more here. All right, let's see here. Share screen. Students pressured university not to hire professor who questioned diversity statements. Don't even ask me to pronounce his name. I'm not going to. A professor of psychology at Toronto University was denied a job at the University of California, LA, UCLA, after dozens of psychology students demanded he not be hired after making statements questioning diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. He was in talks with UCLA for a tenure position in the psychology department, but several graduate students sent a letter recommending they not hire him over his positions. All right. The students said they were concerned about his skepticism of DEI statements, which, in their eyes, disqualified him for a position at the university. So even being skeptical of does DEI work? Is DEI needed? Just being skeptical of CRT, just being skeptical of these issues. It doesn't matter anything else. All you got to do is be skeptical. You're not swallowing it hook, line, and sinker. And you're going to get denied a job. You're going to get excluded. You're not going to be part of their group simply if you're skeptical about it. Yeah, nobody, that at minimum, you should be skeptical. I agree, nobody. You know, skepticism is a valuable commodity. All right, here is the letter. Let me share this letter here real quick. Can I make it big enough to be read? Yeah, here we go. And stop sharing that screen and share this one. We, the undersigned students, write to strongly recommend against the hiring as a tenured faculty in the psychology department. We feel that serious consideration of him directly conflicts with the values and standards we uphold as an institution and department committed to DEI. We believe he would not enter the social area as a member committed to creating a safe, welcoming, and inclusive environment, and his hiring would threaten ongoing efforts to protect and uplift individuals of marginalized backgrounds. All right, so let's just stop there. Every white male that signed this letter should have, and if they're still in their class, they should have quit the school. If they believe that strongly in DEI, they should have given up their positions so that somebody from one of these marginalized groups could get there, could take their seat. Our concerns were initially raised by his podcast, Two Psychologists, Four Beers, which is publicly available, listed to on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other popular websites. In each of the episodes, he discusses various topics relating to current events and academia, including but not limited to diversity statements, anti-racism in psychology organizations, sexism and racism on college campuses, freedom of speech, polarization, and conservatism in psychology. He has 101 episodes. We do not intend this to be a comprehensive review of his podcast content. Rather, critical episodes we'd like to draw your attention to are episode 15, Just when you think you're out, and episode 92, should you, SPSP stay out of it? Most concerning to us as students is his opposition to institutions endorsing positions on social political issues he deems contentious or controversial. In particular, he takes a strong stance against promoting DEI initiatives through the use of diversity statements and DEI criterion to evaluate research. I did not take any psychology courses. All right. At least none that were beyond what was absolutely required. And that's been decades ago. I remember very, very little about it. But I failed to understand exactly how I failed to understand exactly how submitting a DEI statement of, can, being the person who believes in DEI can, either inhibit or progress your research. People don't think the same way. So anybody doing research is going to have, and especially in this career field, in this field, has to have different people in there. Now, at one time when countries were far less integrated, they're a lot more homogenous, then you could expect studies to be related to the people within it. Because if you don't have access to different people because they don't live there, then you can't study them. You can't bring them in as part of your research. You can only research what you have available to you. I mean, I'd love to be able to research black stars and black holes. I would love to be able to research antimatter. I don't have any antimatter. I don't have a black star in front of me. I don't have a black hole available. So you can only research what's there. I'm holding a cup of coffee here in front of me in a white ceramic mug with an American flag on the side of it. Now, I don't have a spectroscope. I don't even have a microscope. The only thing I've got here in front of me is my laptop, a mouse, and my Razer Tartris that I use when I'm gaming. That way I use that as a keyboard instead of the keyboard on my computer. That way I don't ruin my computer keyboard. There's not a whole hell of a lot of research I can do about this cup of coffee I got in front of me. I can use the computer to study other people's research, but they had to have the coffee in front of them. The actual coffee, they had to have equipment in front of them. So what I'm saying, again, you can only research what you have available to you. He also takes a firm position against the use of diversity statements as a tool in the hiring process and specifically criticizes their use in the University of California system's faculty application process. Unless you agree with us on DEI, you can't work with us. You have to eat from the same plate of poison food the rest of us eat from if you want to work with us. That's not being very inclusive, is it? When you don't have people, when you're not willing to have anybody that disagrees with you or is even skeptical of you, of what you believe is dogma. That's not very inclusive of you. So you don't even follow the statements that you claim are so damned important. In episode 15, he remarks the skepticism about these statements as they seem like administrator value signaling. It's not clear what good they do and how they're going to be used. He continues to a lot of people on the left, diversity is such an obvious positive thing, and says left fails to acknowledge these statements signal an alliance to a certain set of beliefs, which they do. Either you believe it and we want you to work with us, or you don't believe us and we're going to kick you out. We're not even going to let you in. We're not going to be very inclusive. Rather than recognizing the value of DEI initiatives to improve representation and inclusion of marginalized scholars, he casts valuing diversity, equity, and inclusion as a uniquely liberal values reflective of ideological bias. And it is. When you are making your decisions based upon a person's skin color, based upon their gender, based upon who they want to sleep with, then you're not taking the best people. You're taking people based upon these other issues, these other qualities. These comments frame diversity statements as a threat to ideological diversity. Duh, it is. They are a threat to ideological diversity. And you're proving it by not wanting him in there because he is not ideologically aligned with you. So how can the pure hypocrisy of this statement, I don't see how they could write this and not understand what they were saying and the pure hypocrisy of what they were saying. All right, what you got there, Fury? You can study caffeine to offend and break down your biological history. Oh, I don't want a black dwarf star there. Be careful if your dogma chases after my karma, it may more fall foul traffic. Yeah. Oh, these guys, these kids, and of course the college, UCLA ended up not hiring the guy. The committee said that email was enough to say this is just too much of a headache for us. Why borrow trouble? We can always hire someone else that the students approve of. Now, the professor, his official statement on this, sorry, happy to confirm facts, but I'd rather not speculate on the record. So yeah, he's not going to say that the students are why he didn't get the job. But we know that's why he didn't get the job because the students didn't want him. All right, what's this? What's this? Uh, okay, I'm not getting. I've got a thing here on a school and the Pledge of Allegiance, but I want to do some more research on it. So that will probably be for next Monday because I need to do some more research on this. So Monday when I stream, be one of the things I'll be talking about is uh, a teacher who is fired because her kids refuse to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, so since we're talking about California, yeah, I saw about that data. If you're talking about the Georgia, I believe he was a Georgia state legislator, and there's he was claiming that he claimed that he didn't do it, but the guy that accused him of it is one of those gun nuts that uh, doesn't like him because he's against, he wants to ban all assault weapons in the state of Georgia. So yeah, I even watched the police body cam on that, and but I didn't get. But I was what was I doing when I was watching that? I think I was cooking dinner while watching that. So I've got some that's something else I want to go, I need to do some more research in before I go spouting off my mouth on something I'm not 100% on, or I don't have as much knowledge about as I want to. So my weekend is pretty well booked up already, and my son's coming over to help me fix my fence before my neighbors blow a gasket about it. Well, yeah, Dana, I've got some, like I said, I've got some more research I want to do on it because what I saw from the police body cam uh, didn't wasn't 100% persuasive to me. Now, but then I've not had a chance to do any reading. All I saw was the body cam. I haven't had a chance to do any reading or any further facts because I know the police took his car keys and they supposedly were photographing them to see if there was any residue of paint on the keys. But I don't know what that result was. So got a lot, got stuff on that. Like I said, there's a lot of questions about that still in my mind because I take nobody's word for on either side of an issue. I've met too many liars on both sides. I've met too many people that exaggerate. I've met too many people that leave out facts. So, and I hate defending people or accusing people simply because they're on my side, quote unquote, of other issues, or even of that particular issue. I mean, that's why the only bumpers, quote unquote, I've got a magnetic sticker on my car for wounded warriors on the side of my pickup truck. Exactly, nobody. Now the police body cam I watched was about 25 minutes long, so it wasn't a short video. It was about 25 minutes long. Uh, and part of my problem, and see, part of the problem I have with police body cams, and I wish it was illegal in every state, but unfortunately, it's not illegal in any state. For the police to mute their body cams at any point during the process that they're either investigating or transporting someone they've arrested or anything else. That body cam should never be shut off or muted during that entire process. And that, and I'm part of that. Few minutes the body cam yesterday that I watched that video. The body cams are all muted, which really bugs me when they do that because that's a lot of information that if it went to trial, what were you saying there? You know, and I don't trust cops to tell me the truth either. I don't trust the cops to tell me the truth. I've seen too many of them lie. All right. California Reparations Committee has finished its job and turned over its recommendations. The leader of the California's first in the nation reparations task force on Wednesday said it wouldn't take a stance on how much the state should compensate black residents, whom economists estimate may be owed more than $800 billion for decades of over-policing, disproportionate incarceration, and housing discrimination. The 800 billion, that's B, billion with a B, is more than 2.5 times California's 300 billion annual budget and does not include a recommended 1 million per older black resident for health disparities that may have shortened their average lifespan, nor does the figure count compensating people for property unjustly taken by the government or devaluing black businesses. Two other harms the task force say the state perpetuated. All forms of discrimination should be considered in reparations. The task force should feel free to go beyond our loss estimates and determine what the right amounts would be, said Thomas Kramer, a public policy professor at the University of Connecticut, told the panel on Wednesday. All forms of discrimination. Now, the government, state governments, federal governments, local governments. Again, the only discrimination allowed today is discrimination against white men. And for the most part, conservative, heterosexual white men. And if you don't believe me, go to your government's purchasing office and you'll find and ask them, if I have a black owned business, will I get preferential? If I am a woman owned business, will I get preferential? If I'm a gay or lesbian business, will I get preferential? And the answer to all those questions is yes. You go to the head of the line for hiring, or not for hiring, but for purchasing contracts, business contracts of any kind. As I said, just saw that California wasn't a state before slavery was abolished, and then it was in. You're exactly right. California was never a slave state. However, what they're saying is that the state still discriminated against black people, and has ever since it became a state. Therefore, because of people were discriminated against 100 years ago, people today are owed money. I'm sorry, the only people who are owed money are the people that are alive and were discriminated against. Yeah, you're exactly right, Fury. But you go to any of these businesses, you go to any of these purchasing offices, and even here in Florida, they do the same thing. That's why when you look up at business, it'll say woman owned, Hispanic owned, black owned, gay owned, lesbian owned. I imagine we'll soon see transsexual owned. So they get that little extra boost in getting that government tax dollars, get that little extra government business. But if you're a white male owned, unless you fill that gay, lesbian, trans sticker, you fall to the bottom of the heap. That's why so many businesses, even though it's the husband that runs the business is in his wife's name. So that technically it's a woman owned business. Let's get back to these reparations here. Black residents may not receive cash payments anytime soon, if ever, because the state legislature and Governor Gavin Newsom will ultimately decide whether any reparations are to be paid. So California now for the past 2 years has been making this huge ass deal that we're studying for reparations. They have been building the hopes of all these black people in California. They've had black people moving to California in hopes of being there in time to get their hands on some of this reparations money. Because, they're hearing millions of dollars to each individual black person who's in the state. They're hearing all these huge ass numbers. And they're building the hopes and dreams of these people. The task force faces a 1 July deadline to recommend the forms of compensation to be awarded and who should receive it, along with other remedies to repair the harm. But the panel's chair said Wednesday it's up to the state legislature to ascribe a restitution amount based upon the methodology economists recommend, and which the task force approved on Wednesday. Task force is pretty much done regarding the compensation component. Our task was to create a methodology for calculating the various forms of compensation that corresponded with our findings. For those who support reparation, the staggering $800 billion estimate underscores the long-lasting harm Black Americans have endured, even in a state that never officially endorsed slavery. Several people gave public comment, spoke of an urgent need to pay Black Americans for all that was taken from them. If you have something taken from you that in your lifetime, then the government should have to give it back to you or pay you appropriately for it. But somebody you were never even related to, you are owed. I can't wrap my mind around this idea how you can be owed for something. Somebody alive today can be owed for something that happened 100 years ago or 50 years ago, unless you are that person who was alive 50 years ago that happened to. I cannot wrap my mind around how you can be owed for something that never directly happened to you as an individual in this country. Especially in this modern day where if you are a Black American, you are given extra points, you are given extra credit, you are given extra consideration regardless. Prime, prime example, the day that the white guy was involved in the death of a Black man on the subways, Mr. Penny, the day he was charged, indicted for the death of him, a Black man who was involved in the death using a weapon of another Black man on the subway was not indicted. Was no charges are to be brought against him. The the uh, the jury let him go. Said no, they refused to indict him. The grand jury. Explain to me how anybody today can logically look at our current governance, our the current laws, the current regulations, the current policies that are in effect, and tell me that a Black man or woman is discriminated against. Because I just don't see it. I don't agree with that is not what is happening today. Once again, the only people discriminated against are conservative, straight, white males. That's it. You're the only ones discriminated against. That can be discriminated against legally. All right. Several people who gave public comment on Wednesday spoke of the urgent need. My family came from the South because they were running for their lives. They were fearful of being lynched just for voting. Cash payments are necessary. Money talks, he said, knowing the white people benefited from the U.S. government land through the 1862 Homestead Act. 1862. And the Japanese incarceration during World War II. And the Jewish Holocaust victims received reparations. Well, the Japanese that were incarcerated during World War II, yeah, those who were incarcerated got reparations because what was done to them was wrong. They're not giving reparations out today for what happened during World War II. The children of and grandchildren of those who were incarcerated in the internment camps of World War II are not getting reparations today. Those who were wronged were made right. Bob Woodson, a prominent black conservative, calls reparations impractical and controversial and counterproductive. No amount of money could ever make right the evil of slavery, and it's insulting to suggest it could. And remember, if we want to get into this, blacks owned slaves in the United States. American Indians owned slaves in the United States. And not all slaves were black. He added that black communities relied on faith and family to build thriving communities following slavery. Some of these communities only began coming apart after we lost sight of those values, which hold the key to the community's restoration. Yeah, remember a certain president pushing welfare, making the comment that he'd have them blanks voting for the Democrats for generations. Financial redress is just one part of the package being considered. Other proposals include paying incarcerated inmates market value for their labor. Well, if we're going to pay them market value for their labor, we need to charge them market value for housing and food and medical. We discussed that yesterday, I believe. Establishing free wellness centers and planting more trees in black communities, banning cash bail, and adopting K-12 Black Studies curriculum. Reparation talks are stalled at the federal level, but the idea flourished in California as well as several U.S. cities and counties following the death of George Floyd. An advisory committee in San Francisco has recommended a $5 million payouts as well as guaranteed income of at least $997,000 as well as personal debt forgiveness. We're not going to give you $5 million cash today, but we're going to give you $100,000 a year every year for the rest of your life. And everything you owe today, you no longer owe. So you're starting off life right now with $5 million in the bank in your name for you to spend how you want to spend. And we're going to give you $100,000 a year for the rest of your life. And I will make a bet that that's tax-free income. That'll be tax-free. Boy, that's one hell of a welfare system, isn't it? That is one hell of a welfare system. You're not wrong there, nobody. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris on Wednesday said from Ghana that she and President Joe Biden support reparations study. but the president has so far sidestepped calls from advocates to create a federal commission. The 800 billion estimate in California includes a 246 billion to compensate eligible Black Californians whose neighborhoods are subjected to aggressive policing and prosecution in the war on drugs from 1970 to 2020. That would translate to nearly $125,000 for every person who qualifies. The number is approximate based on modeling and population estimates. Economists also include 569 billion to make up for discriminatory practice of redlining in housing loans. That amount would amount to $223,000 per eligible resident from 1933 to 1977. Now, this compensation, all right? The 569 billion is considered a maximum and assumes all 2.5 million Californians who identify Black would be eligible, but they won't all be. People must meet residency and other requirements, must also be descendants of enslaved and freed Black people. Okay, what about descendants of slave owners? What about people like Kamala? Kamala is a descendant of a slave owner. You know, are they going to disqualify people because their families were slave owners? I mean, if you're going to get qualified because somebody in your ancient lineage was a slave, are you going to get automatically disqualified because you were a slave owner? That question that wasn't brought up isn't answered, isn't in the article. Why would Ghana have any kind of influence on reparations in the UK? Slavery was and is an evil. Slavery still exists today. It still exists in Africa and the Middle East today. Black people and brown people enslaving each other still happens today. For all of us evil colonizers in this magnificent country, the United States. Our history is that we gave our own blood to end legalized slavery in the United States. So, exactly, Fury, fifis and retards. You're right, nobody. I forgot about that. It took them until 1985 to pay off that debt. UK. This is why I have a problem with the left. The same people who are pushing DEI, the same people pushing CRT, the same people who want to indoctrinate our children into this LGBTQ plus nonsense are the same people pushing to pay money out to people based upon their skin color. People who were never directly harmed. And these are the same people that want to punish me based upon what I have between my legs, how I prefer to use what's between my legs, and the color of my skin and my religious beliefs. I'm the evil one. Anyway, anyway, uh, let me close some of this. Uh, there is a bit of good news, though. And when I read this morning, I was absolutely shocked. Google drops its sponsorship of Pride and Drag after hundreds of workers signed a petition calling it a direct affront to religious beliefs and sensitivities of Christians. Google dropped its sponsorship of a San Francisco Pride event after hundreds of employees signed a fiery petition lashing out against it. The tech giant sponsors a series of LGBT events across the United States annually, and this year the headline event was due to be a pride and drag show at a gay bar featuring a popular performer, Peaches Christ. But employees noticed that Google removed the San Francisco show from its internal events page after a petition was launched opposing the event on religious grounds. According to memos seen by CNBC. Signed by a few hundred people, the petition claimed that Peaches Christ's performances routinely sexualized and disrespected Christian values, while accusing Google of religious discrimination for sponsoring the act. Speaking about the 49-year-old drag queen, it read, "The provocation and inflammatory artistry is considered a direct affront to the religion, beliefs, and sensitivities of Christians." That's this performer. Where are his eyes? Weird. The authors also demanded an apology from the organizers, saying they had complained to Google's HR department, People's Operations, alleging the venue violated the company's event guidelines regarding sexually explicit activity. Peaches Christ, who shot to fame on the California drag scene following a launch of their night movie series Midnight Mass in 1998, hit back at the petitioners, accusing them of promoting anti-queer, anti-gay rhetoric. Writing on Facebook, the drag queen said this is another example of the really disturbing rise in anti-queer, anti-gay rhetoric that is using drag performers and trans people as scapegoats. So I don't know what their show is like. I haven't seen it. What surprised me, and I'm not going to see it, I won't be honest. What surprised me though is that Google actually did this because Christians complained about it. So I wanted to get that out there. I wanted to show that on occasion, a group of Christians got together and and Google And Google of all companies, this is what surprised me. Google of all companies is the one that changed their policy. They actually did something. So, all right, people. This is an hour and a half. I gotta cut the show short today because, like I said, I've got to bake a cake and go pick up a birthday present and some other things I've got to get done today. I want to thank everybody for coming out and listening to me rant and rave. Got let's see, Fury's still here and nobody, and Fury, nobody. We need to. I'd like to have both of you on to discuss this issue because you both very uh, either you're really good at googling and binging and everything else right now, or you're both very knowledgeable on some of this history. And I'd love to have both of you on at the same time to have a little discussion about this. So if we can make that a thing, that if you're all willing, we can make that a thing. All right. And JoJo popped in. Data Wasteland was here. Data, go ahead and post your link one more time before we slide out of here. All right. And let's see. And Duck Dog popped in for a little bit. I don't know if Duck Dog is still listening. So, but hey, I do appreciate everybody that did pop out here today. How many people are still here? According to the thing, it's only three of us. So or only three people are in the chat right now. Three people watching now, but that's okay. I want to say once again, I'm going to end this show with sweetheart, I love you. Happy birthday, my babe. And I'm going to try to make your birthday a wonderful evening for you tonight. All right. So, as always, ladies and gents, be with the ones you love the ones that you're with. Have a good one. Tomorrow, let's see. This is Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday fun stream, and join Dar and Raman and I as we talk about things and try to keep out of politics. All right. Y'all have a good day. Later.